Brazil's healthcare system is on the verge of collapse, according to its own managers. Many clinics are already too overwhelmed by coronavirus cases to take in any new patients. More than 53,000 people have contracted COVID-19 in Brazil. There are fears it could become one of the world's pandemic hotspots. President Jair Bolsonaro still maintains it's a relatively minor disease. Bolsonaro is also facing a fresh blow to his political authority. His justice minister has resigned, accusing him of meddling with the police.
Noisy protests rang out across Brazil on Friday, drowning out the president's televised address to the nation. Jair Bolsonaro defended his sacking of the federal police chief, amid accusations that he was trying to interfere in the country's justice system.
I don't have to ask for authorization from anyone to change any official or anyone else.
But Bolsonaro still provided no reason for the dismissal, which had prompted the resignation of Brazil's popular justice minister on live TV.
Unfortunately, I have no way to continue with the commitment that I assumed without being able to preserve the autonomy of the federal police to carry out their work.
Sergio Moro's departure was a body blow to a president already under fire over his handling of the coronavirus crisis. Bolsonaro has repeatedly described COVID-19 as a little flu, but now hundreds of victims are being buried in mass graves. State governors have brought in social distancing measures, dismissed by Bolsonaro as poison. Officials are warning that hospitals are on the brink of collapse. And the man at the top faces public anger, growing louder by the day.
Now, for more on this, let's bring in journalist Michael Fox from Florianopolis. Michael, Brazil's former Justice Minister Sergio Moro, he was a popular politician, famed for fighting corruption. We heard him speak there in our report. He was a bit vague there about his motives. Why did he resign?
Well, it's still not very clear. We know why he resigned. He resigned because Bolsonaro fired police chief Mauricio Valeixo. Now, that was also mentioned in your report. Now, the intricacies of exactly how important was this or why, that's what we don't know. He mentioned numerous times political interference from the Bolsonaro government, trying to take out the federal police chief. He also, in several of his talks and several of his points, he kind of alluded to a series of crimes that the Bolsonaro government may have been committing, that Bolsonaro himself may have been committing, including asking for updates on intelligence and federal police investigations. This would be like asking for updates from the FBI about investigations that are confidential and the president really doesn't have access to. And of course, the idea of being able to take out the federal police chief. The idea is that these are kind of separate entities that Bolsonaro should not be meddling with. But there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't know. Many people are mentioning it could also be impacting or have to do with Bolsonaro's own sons. Now, all three of them they're all politicians. All three of them are under investigation, and some of them are very serious investigations. The Intercept just came out with a bit of a bombshell this morning about his son Flavio, who's a former assembly representative from Rio de Janeiro, and that he may have been involved in kickbacks to build housing for paramilitaries in Rio de Janeiro and money financed and whatnot. So there's a lot of issues here that we just don't know yet.
Michael, his departure comes only a week after the president sacked the popular health minister. So this is another serious blow for Bolsonaro. Is he losing support in the public?
So you have to remember that even as of a couple weeks ago, the health minister had roughly double the support that Bolsonaro has. He was up around in the mid-60s in terms of percentage, and Bolsonaro's around 30, 35, 36, 37. Now, remember also that Bolsonaro is very similar to Donald Trump. He has his roughly third of the country. These are his supporters. He's never had more than that, really. And he knows that he's able to do things with that, just like Donald Trump. he's able to manage the country because these are his people. So the more drastic he is, the more bombastic, oftentimes that kind of gets his supporters even more on board. And that's what we're seeing, particularly with Bolsonaro breaking quarantines, getting to the protests, supporting these protesters, saying that, for instance, the coronavirus isn't that big of a deal, or that 70% of the country has to get sick before this whole thing is over. These are things that he's doing to actually shore up his support within his supporters. Or out at the same time, the rest of the country is extremely nervous about this crisis that just keeps to grow.
Michael Fox there. Thank you very much.